Hello, everyone. Today we have Sarah King joining us. You might recognize Sarah from her PCS Diaries series that we've started. Sarah is helping us to try to tell the EFMP PCS journey story. And we're excited to have her today to tell her story, her EFMP story. So thanks, Sarah, for coming. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about you and your background? It's a small question. Just give us your history and go.
I've been a Navy wife for about 16 years now, and my husband just hit 20 years this year. And but we've only been an EFM family for probably the last 4 years. So we've been really familiar with the Navy, everything about it, but EFM is kind of still a little bit new to us.
Yeah. But can you tell us a little bit about your family and your children, to give us a little bit of a context of what your what your situation is with the EFMP family program?
Yeah. The last duty station we were at, my youngest son, we only had him at the time. I have two sons right now. He was only about 3 years old, and we knew something wasn't quite right. He wasn't speaking, he wasn't meeting his milestones. But we would go to the pediatrician, they would refer us out, speech, occupational therapy, all of that. And I was really just, flying by the seat of my pants. I really didn't know what was going on. And he was still pretty young, so I don't think they really knew what was going on either. And at the time, I was working at a hospital, and I had a friend. Um, well, let me backtrack. I never lived in military housing. I didn't really have a lot of military friends. So I was more surrounded by the civilian world, which, they wouldn't know a lot about EFM or anything like that. So I didn't really have a mentor. So I start working at the hospital, and a friend of mine is working there, and she's also a Navy wife. And she's like, why don't you have him in the First Steps program? Well, no one ever had mentioned that to me. And I'm like, well, I need to look into this. So I get him into that, and they set him up in the early intervention preschool, and more therapists and more, meetings and everything. And, we're going along, everything's fine, and it's time to PCS. And we're just about to move, and we get orders to Guam. And I start, first is excitement. Oh, that's beautiful. But then it's like, at this point, my son now newly has to go to preschool, has to go to speech, has to go to OT. And this is the first time we've ever had to think about anybody other than ourselves when we've had to move. And I'm like, well, I wonder how the schools are in Guam. I wonder how this is in Guam. And I go to work. My friend at the hospital, Navy wife, why aren't you in the EFM program? I'm like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. So I go home that night, and I ask my husband, and he's, he had already been in probably 15 years at that point. He's like, yeah, I know about that, but I'm trying to make chief. And, that's going to hurt us. These orders to Guam are great. And so I'm like, okay, that, whatever, we'll figure it out. Well, then, a few days go by, and we're both like, we can't just think about ourselves. We have to do what's best for him, not what's best for his career. It doesn't matter if he makes chief, my son needs to have what he needs. And we decide to go that route. Little did we know it takes months to get in the EFM program. You have a stack of paperwork this big. We don't know what we're doing. We're taking it to all the doctors. We have an EFM coordinator, but we never even seen her. We just talked on the phone or got an email like, this is the papers you need, fill them out, turn them in, wait 3 months. Well, we already had the orders, and luckily we had a really good detailer that's like, you know what, I'm going to try to keep you guys together. Let's give it a little bit of time. We'll rush the EFM paperwork and we'll see what we can do, which I know does not happen often. Like, we are a very last minute decision to do that. And honestly, we should have probably been EFM a whole year prior to that.
And how old was your son at the time when you decided to apply?
He had just, he was a little over 3 because he had just aged out of the early intervention program, which ends at 3 years old. So he was just now getting services through the public school system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had no idea anything EFM had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And even upon meeting or talking to the EFM coordinator, the only thing we knew was or they can accommodate his needs.
Mm-hmm.
We had no idea everything it had to offer. There wasn't much communication, and it was more just if I heard it from my friend at work, then I questioned my husband about it, then he questioned people at work, then we had more answers. But
That
it
is
was
that is
very
how people work, I think. I mean, that's been my experience too. If you want to find out the best information, you talk to your friends, and somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows
yeah.
a new program that is offered. It's hard to find on your own. And as far as that's concerned, when it comes to applying, although it is, a requirement to apply, it's still unclear when it comes to situations like yours where there's not necessarily a diagnosed disability per se at that time, if you should or shouldn't. So kind of what was your so in my estimation, your orders to Guam were kind of the catalyst for you, but would
Yeah.
you what would you think would have been your red flag that you should have applied to the program had you not gotten those orders? Would you have done it, do you think?
I don't think we would have. Now that I'm in it, I'm so glad, and I would recommend it to anyone who thinks that they should be in it. But we probably never would have done it because my husband was under the impression that he would not meet his milestones making rank, which he did. He did. It didn't make any effect on it. He has gotten everything that he's been up for since then. But I think that the rumor about it affecting your ability to advance in your career is one of the main things everyone's like, don't do it. Don't you're limited to the amount of places you can go. Your career is going to be limited, but it hasn't been.
Yeah.
And I don't think we ever would have signed up had it not been for the last minute, oh wow, we can't take these orders because or I have to stay behind because my son can't continue out there. So we probably never would have become an EFM family, and I'm really glad we are. Like, we've gotten so much out of it now, but had you told me that 4 years ago, I would probably be
Yeah.
like, okay, we don't need that. We won't benefit out of it. There's no reason the Navy needs to know.
For other families who
Mhm.
maybe don't have that clear cut
Mhm.
requirement to join the program, um, what would they be looking for? What is in your experience, what did they require of you before you had that a diagnosis? Like, what was required to prove that you should be a part of this program?
I would just suggest doing it. If you even think that if you have any specialists, any doctors, anything extra, do it. And the worst it could be is they say that you're not EFM. When we started with the program, we had no diagnoses. Everything was he's young, wait and see. In the back of my mind, I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what. And we're still working on trying to find out what's going on with him. He, my oldest son currently has a rare neurological speech disorder called apraxia. Um, it's rare and not a lot of speech therapists even know how to treat it. So we didn't get that diagnosis until probably a year after we became EFM. He also has an eyelid issue, congenital bilateral ptosis, where his eyelids didn't form all the way, the muscles in them, and they droop a little bit, which can compress his eyeballs and, affect his vision. He has dyslexia, so he struggles and schools don't test for that. Um, he has a coordination issue, and the list seems to grow every year as we're finding stuff out. And our journey with that is very similar to the EFM journey. I start talking to someone in a chat room and we have similarities, and her kid was diagnosed with something, and I'm like, that sounds like mine. So then I find whatever specialist, and boom, he has that. It's just everything with our journey has been trial and error, and it's been so hard. Like, it's one of those you wish that you knew someone that's already taken this path, and then here's the manual, here's what you do. But I mean, just like with the EFM, it's I talk to someone and get a little piece of the puzzle. Same with his diagnosis. I get a little piece, but I know there's more. And it wasn't until probably when we moved here about 3 years ago that we started.
And
We
that's
got
Virginia, correct? So
Yeah,
just
sorry.
recap for
Yeah.
those who didn't watch the PCS diaries. Just want to recap where
I
you are
wanted
now.
to what did I say? We got moved to the top of the wait list for housing because we're EFM. We have access to respite care. We have all of these wonderful services, but nobody told, your paperwork comes back, your EFM, but that's it. No one tells you anything else.
Mm.
You then start asking around, or someone asks you the right question.
Mm-hmm.
When we signed up for housing, the wait list was 2 years long. We were like, okay, we have to figure it out. And the lady at the office just happened to casually ask, isn't your child EFM? You get moved to the top of the wait list. And we're like, we had no idea. And also, going back to when we first started to be an EFM family, we submitted the paperwork unknowing if we would even come back EFM. We had no diagnoses. My child was just going to therapy and just behind.
Mm-hmm.
So we came back as a category 4, and the highest is a 5. So we were really shocked. So I would recommend to anyone who thinks that your child or yourself, because adults can be EFM too, apply. And the worst that can happen is they say no, but apply early. We did it after we got orders, and we were very, very lucky they were able to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
But had we really known what EFM meant and what it meant for my husband, we would have and should have done it way sooner than we did.
Do you have any other little things that you wish you knew up front, so that we can kind of be that resource for people, be that friend who shares these bits of information?
Unfortunately, or I haven't, in my situation, you don't get the manual that says, here's everything it entails and here's how it will help you. It's just little pieces I'm finding out along the way. And my husband's been in 20 years now, and we still probably haven't utilized everything we could have.
Yeah, that communal knowledge is a wonderful thing, but it also is difficult because often program administrators don't always have the same knowledge, even though these program offerings might be available to families. Not every individual has the same pass down of information and training that they should.
Yes.
So we as military families are essentially forced to become our own advocates to say, no, this is what is afforded to us. And that's, one of the things we want to help people with, is to be that resource. So I really love that you're sharing some of these. I wish I knew tips and tricks, because I think that that's another resource that we can help provide for families moving forward of, hey, maybe Military One Source has a partial list, but did you know that there's others out there?
Even if you get a really good coordinator, an EFM coordinator, everything is so spaced out. So um, we have access to the respite care program where we get a certain number of hours of daycare a month for my children because they're EFM, which is amazing. But the EFM coordinator just knows a phone number for you to call. So it's two separate entities that don't talk to each other. So if I have an issue with one, the other one has no idea. Or even with school, which has been a huge, big struggle with us, getting his IEP together, knowing how to navigate that. There's no place in the EFM um, resource that helps you with that. Now, we do know that there are people on base that's supposed to help come to the meetings, advocate for you, but we have found that you can't call them, or at least here on our base, our situation. Maybe other bases are different, but we've had trouble, communicating, getting in touch. We've showed up, they haven't been there. It's just been really less than helpful. So the whole school thing is a whole other situation in itself, and the EFM coordinator will give you the phone number to the people to talk to, but then you're on your own again, still trying to put everything together and just build it up yourself. Or someone told me to call this person. It's so hard navigating everything by yourself. So it
Yeah.
would be amazing just to have it all together.
And crowdsourcing, while it's very helpful and often really it gets you on the right track,
Yeah,
what someone experienced 6 months ago, the point of contact could be a totally different person.
yeah.
So it's not as reliable, and of course it's not official. So anything
Mhm.
you hear, unless you're backing it up with DoD policy or Navy policy in your case,
Yeah,
it's not going to be something that you can bring to someone and say, I need this service, if it's just something you found out on Facebook. And that's
yeah,
something that we've discovered, is that a lot of communication gets jumbled, and if you don't have that DoD instruction, you're out of luck and you can't really get the services you need.
my husband deployed one time for 8 months, and I decided I'm going to move back to my home state and live with my mom and get extra help I need. So we enrolled my son into schools. I don't know the rules. I feel like you almost have to be a lawyer to really navigate it. Well, in Virginia, you can fall under the developmental delay umbrella and get services. In Indiana, you cannot. You can now, they just changed it, but at the time you could not. So every service I had fought for across 2 states got taken away just because it didn't fall under that umbrella. Now, had it been passed that you could keep it for 6 months, or whatever, I had already moved home 6 months after that. But when I came back to Virginia after getting all of our services taken away, we had to wait a full year, and for him to fall through the cracks, for them to recognize that he needs these services added back on, because they can't just give you services.
Yeah.
So if the law will change for you to keep them for 6 months, and then that gives the school time to see, yes, my child does need these services, would be amazing, because I've been personally affected by that, and it's hard. My son had to repeat a whole grade because they said, we don't know your kid. We can't just give him services. Wait. And everything was, let's just wait and see. And we waited until the end of the year, and he was failing.
Mm.
So, and it wasn't for lack of trying. And I was there every month
Yeah.
hosting IEP meetings.
And additionally, part of one of the reasons that we think this will be a good solution is not just the 6 month waiting, but also the ability to reach out to receiving schools early, so that
Yeah.
they can prepare. And if there is an issue with a service that they just maybe don't even have anyone to provide
Hmm.
it, that there can be that communication ahead of time.
Yeah.
So if you're deciding between living on an installation or off, or you
Hmm.
can make informed decisions about your child's education. And I
Yeah.
think that by coupling those legislative items together, it will help schools be able to be prepared, because have them be prepared and work collaboratively. It's not
Yes.
just about, give us what we want, and we're not going to consider what is, the reality. Teachers are,
Yeah.
underfunded, schools are underfunded for special
Yeah.
education. So we know as an organization that we need to work together. And I think that
Yeah.
by coupling those legislative items together, it really will strengthen the process for military families who have to move. So we're all here as a community together to help each other. Our website, thepromiseact.org, will provide resources for you as families. All of our EFMP Story webinars will be posted to our website, so you can watch them, and we will start to kind of give little timestamps of when you can find each little tidbit of information, so you can just jump right in to what you need to find. But do reach out if there's any questions that you need answered, or any questions about resources that you're not receiving, because we want to be that resource for you. But thank you, Sarah, for joining us today, and
Thank you
for
for having me.
yeah.
And I appreciate all of the information you guys put out. It's been so helpful. Like, just little things I could relate to so much. I reached out to I reached out the other day, and I was like, I was listening to the stories, and I could relate to each one of them, and it's crazy, and I'm constantly learning with each video you put out. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, and we just want to tell more stories. So if you want to share your story, your experience, we're here to learn from each other and to be a positive kind of collaboration, so we can learn and move forward stronger. We obviously have some hard stories that we want to share as well, but ultimately we're here as an organization to improve the lives of those coming up behind us, and fix the problems that we can fix, and go forward from there. But again, thank you, Sarah, for joining us, and keep an eye out for more of Sarah's story, her PCSing, or hopefully we'll find
Yeah.
out if she ends up PCSing soon. COVID and life just kind of get in the way and of best
Yes.
life.
Yes, I'm currently sitting in a empty room right now, hoping to leave soon.
Pack it up. We're going to follow her and her journey, and just to find out what she's been able to do with, transferring her children's education to a new location, to what does it look like actually on PCS day, receiving your household goods, all of that. We're going to kind of cover it as it happens. So thank you, Sarah, and we will be in touch, I'm sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.